Facebook. This is Brittany Boles back with another chapter of my book, Finding Starlight, which I am reading 1 week, one chapter at a time, until it is published, or I sign an agent, or get discovered. Typically, I think it goes in the other order, though. I sign a successful agent, then I get published, then I sort of get discovered by all of you. Even more of you, I should say. That was a little crooked. Okay, so here we are with another chapter, as promised. This is unpublished story of my life. What else do I need to say? No trigger warnings in this chapter, I don't think. But overall, the reason that I'm sharing this is in hopes that it will inspire others in some way, either to share your story or to tell your story or embody it in some way, to work through some of the stuff you've gone through, or just to sort of stand up for who you are and what you want in your life, maybe, or whatever it means to you. Prior chapters are available on my website, brittanyboles.com, and there is a 1 through 20 chapter recap up as well. So, that being said, let's get right into tonight's chapter, which is, chapter 24, A Love Like Fire. How do I keep messing up what chapter I'm on? I don't know, guys. There's a lot going on right now. Chapter 24, A Love Like Fire. I stood to stretch out the tension that had come into my shoulders as I relayed my and Matt's story. Katrina followed suit and then fluttered past me on delicate wings, leading us to the pool, which was rippling out from the steady waterfall. Something went so wrong with the two of us, I said, staring into the lovely ripples. When I left him, he said to me, "Nobody will ever love you as much as I do." It stuck with me for a long time, haunting and challenging me. There were times that I deeply regretted my decision, but whenever I was really honest with myself, I knew that I had done the right thing. Who or what, should I ask, did you meet? Katrina changed the subject. It was a relief. I led the two of us back to the big mushroom, my mossy poof, and the tiny cloud, which had not left its airspace. The first time we met, I felt him before I saw him. I began as the cloud created the image of yet another Caribbean poolside. My sun-bronzed self lay in a bikini on a chair next to Emily's equally tanned and relaxed body. In an open-air dining room on the deck above us, overlooking the pool in a grand ocean view, a chef was having an unpleasant cell phone conversation. He wore a sleeveless black shirt over a pair of surf shorts and sandals. His wide, gently curved eyes were lazy under perfectly arched, full eyebrows. His cheeks bore the faint afternoon shade of facial hair. His rich olive skin was tattooed over a flexed, muscular arm and shoulder. He leaned over the railing. The sun lit his high, curved cheekbones and angular jawline. He stopped talking mid-sentence as his brown eyes caught my sunlit body. A shock wave disturbed the air in that moment, making me sit up straight and toss my leg over the side of the chair. I turned my head over my shoulder to look up at the deck. Full, sensual lips curved into a gigantic smile as he caught my gaze. My breath stopped in my chest, and my heart skipped a beat, again, even seeing the scene from afar. It was the most engagingly beautiful, oddly familiar smile I had ever seen. Something deep inside my soul had awoken then, as if from a distant dream. I lifted my hands in a wave before turning around and whispering to Emily, "Who is that?" She turned to look, but I whispered, "Don't look! Some ridiculously good-looking guy is standing up there on the restaurant balcony. Who do you think it could be?" Probably Hank, she said. His name sent a shiver through me. The clouds swirled to another image. On a gigantic sailboat, I poured champagne for a circle of friends. Hank held a glass toward me, a little too closely, and I raised my eyes to his. He grinned and wagged an eyebrow, so I poured him a generous glass and spun away. He moved to the bow of the boat, and I followed his broad, muscular shoulders with my eyes. I had been avoiding him, trying not to catch his attention, I narrated to Katrina. But there was something magnetic about him, and I couldn't help but feel him near me like sunshine on my cheeks. On the cloud, his heavy-lidded eyes were trained intensely on my face, a barely suppressed smile on his lips. My aura leapt in pulsing, happy, shimmery bursts of color. Katrina and I watched the sailboat day play out again like visions on a screen. The boat docked and the party spread out onto a beach. Hank's and my bodies were bathed in ethereal glows that flowed into the sky and met each other somewhere along the way. We distractedly engaged in various conversations, but eventually we drew toward one another. It was absolute wonderful torture to be around Hank, I said to Katrina. I knew that something strangely strong was happening between us, and I desperately wanted it to stop. I was still in the process of breaking up with Matt, and Hank was happily married. Neither one of us was prepared to deal with whatever attraction we were feeling for each other, I explained. But for some reason, it was impossible to avoid or deny. We would find each other at night, ending up at the same party or bar or beach. It was the most exhilarating, maddening series of coincidences I had ever experienced. Back on the cloud, the scene had changed. Hank and I drove along a moonlit road. I was looking out the window at anything but him, and he kept turning his eyes to my face, burning me with their intensity. He reached over and took my hand into his much larger one. His palm was warm and strong. Warm fingers massaged mine, startling me out of my avoidance. My heart was beating so loudly I was sure that he could hear it. We parked at a beach. I tried to take my hand away and open the door, but he pulled me in. Finally, I looked at him and felt something surge from the depths of my soul. In his eyes, I saw a world of love and familiarity, whispers of lifetimes spent together in an alternate reality. Light sprang out of my chest, shattering the remnants of the heart shadow. Hank lifted a hand to my face without taking his eyes from me and said, "I can't help it. I love you. I have from the moment I saw you." "Stop." I choked, eyes filling with tears. My heart was exploding and shattering at the same moment. "Why would you say that?" I demanded as a tear fell down my face. He rubbed away the tear with a thumb and said, "How could I not?" I shook my head and scattered more tears, relinquishing his hands and exiting the vehicle. My entire body was shaking, and I felt dizzy like I was floating through a dream. He followed me to the shoreline, where I stood with my back to him, leaning against the trunk of a palm tree. The heat came off his body in waves that matched the tide. Warmth engulfed me as he stood at my back. He leaned closer, so our cheeks were almost touching. Looking out at the moonlit sea, stars dancing above the horizon, with Hank's lips inches from my neck. The world burst into a glowing scene, similar to that of the bioluminescent bay. "Do you see that?" he asked, and let his lips brush my face. With one large, strong hand on my waist, he pulled me back onto his chest. What do you see? I responded, breathlessly trying to regain my self-control. His nearness was intoxicating me, making it impossible to think. The entire universe laid out just for us, he responded, lips grazing my bare shoulder and sending warm shivers through my body. I turned to look at him and felt a thick current of energy between us. How is it that we can feel so strongly about someone we just met? I asked. What makes you think this is the first time we met? He responded, taking my hand once again and leading me to the wet sand at the edge of the water. Do you believe in past lives? I asked, dipping my toes into the sea foam in an attempt to cool the fire within my blood. I do now, he said, and brought his lips to mine. Something wet and cool splashed my face, shaking me out of my reverie. Katrina was giggling, and I realized the cloud was above me and raining. I laughed, too, wiped my eyes, and tried to swipe at the cloud. It shook out a few more drops, staying just out of reach, and then zoomed playfully to the waterfall. Whoa, I smiled. I guess I got lost there for a minute, huh? You sure did, Katrina said. Well, that was effective, I laughed. Nothing like fresh rain on your face to snap you out of it. Like a cold shower, she agreed. But now that you're with it again, you must tell me what happened. The next day, he boarded a plane and left, I said matter-of-factly. We spent the entire night together on that beach, like it was our last. In a way, it was, I guess. When we said goodbye, it felt as though the world would shatter, ripping apart at the seams. My heart was neither broken nor whole, but rather more open than it had been ever before. My center, the core of who I was reset, cleared out, healed. It's a really tragic love story. From a worldly perspective, I finished, looking at Katrina's face, bright and rapt with attention. The cloud returned and shone like the moon once more. Silvery dancing light illuminated the fairy, and she let her eyelids dip down as though she too was savoring the memory. Whatever happened between us that night was so much bigger than a lusty affair. It broke me open, made me aware of the gigantic, ever-expanding love that I was simultaneously capable of and missing in my life. And the truth is that Hank and I knew that a relationship together would not suit us. We continued to talk and write to each other for a short time after he returned home, but the weight and the guilt of the love we shared was too much for either one of us. We had a long, intimate conversation about the largesse of the universe and what we meant to each other. We agreed to simply live our lives and allow ourselves to love as we were inclined. If we felt overwhelmed or missed one another, we agreed to send a loving thought out into the sky or write a private letter, never to be seen, read, or shown. With our declarations and promises, hearts overflowing and breaking, we said goodbye for the final time. I finished. We sat in silence. Katrina broke it first. It is said that we do indeed live many lives on this planet, and that we set a contract for ourselves before each one. We decide beforehand with whom we will share certain experiences, what lessons we would like to learn, and what choices we may encounter. Perhaps you and Hank had a soul contract to share that experience. I think that might be, I said. Shall we find out? She took my hand and led me back onto the cloud. And that concludes chapter 24, Love Like Fire. Next week, we will move on to an actual past life memory. Chapter 25, 18th century France. So I'll share that with you next Thursday. And in the meantime, may you break wide open with love. And may you be courageous in pursuit of that fire. And also, just a note sort of on the morals of all of this. I recognize that I am not a perfect person. I am not a hero. And life can just be so complicated sometimes. So I encourage you to take responsibility for your actions, especially when they hurt others. And also be gentle with yourself and understand that we all make mistakes, and love is real, and it is transcendent, and we're meant to have it. Not everything is black and white, including my not so heroics, as we've seen many of in this book and may see more of, because I continue to be imperfect. So thank you for indulging this chapter. Thank you for being with me on this journey, and thank you for forgiving me if I hurt you. And I hope that you understand that if you hurt me, that you are forgiven as well. Okay. Have a good night, and I will see you next time.